Morning, everyone. Glad you're back, Jessica. I wanted to check in with maybe just have a couple of reports from your Dharma activity yesterday. What happened with your reflections about morality? And so anybody wants to say something about what they discovered? You did do it, right?
Okay. I did run across a different translation of the term
Shanti.
as ethical karma.
Uh-huh.
I mentioned that yesterday.
Yeah.
And that dissolved the thing that you brought up at the beginning, which was, do you have resistance to the idea of morality? And to just reframe it as ethical conduct focuses on conduct and activity, and all the ways in which the other parameters inform ethical activity.
So that was your reflection about it.
A reflection about it, and that made it easier for me to bring it into action in ways that I hardly noticed,
Yeah.
But to let people ahead in traffic and do some other things that needed to be done.
Yeah. John.
I had, I don't know, some.
Speak up, so.
Okay. I had difficulty with it. I couldn't come, anyway. What I kept dealing with was separateness. Something is ethical, unethical, moral, immoral, and labeling, and all I could come to was it was better to stay in curiosity and don't know as long as possible. Because once you are out of that, when all I could see is once I was out of that, I was into duality of this is this and that is that. So that's what I struggled with.
That's a really important point, because a lot of times we think everything has to be non-dual. The Buddha was not non-dual. He definitely, in the Eightfold Path, there is a right view, there are wrong views. Wrong views are like nihilism, essentialism. So it's not always the case that we have to be non-dual, right? And this is one of those cases where people do need to make distinctions, right? Between what's wholesome and what's unwholesome, what's hurting others and what's not hurting others. And even though we recognize the emptiness of those concepts, still we have to act in a world where we have to take some ethical action, right? And decide what to do with our energy and our time and everything. And I know this is, it's funny because I know this is intuitive for you. You don't have to think about it. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny that you just bring me back to what I always, my biggest Zen lesson is it's not this or it's not that, it's both, and the wisdom is in deciding, and not both in, it's more,
Right.
And it's in making the decision.
Yeah. It's very important to recognize that and to understand we're always in every moment making a choice, right? Where we put our attention, where we put our energy, where we put our action, where we put our mind, where we put our heart. Right? In every moment that choice is being made. And our sense of it in the Bodhisattva sense is that we want to, whatever tiny little weight we have, put it on the side of good.
So I have kind of a concrete example and a spiritual aspect of it. So I had to pick up my grandson yesterday. I usually pick him up on Tuesdays. He's 10 from elementary school. And last week when I picked him up, it was raining also. And I had parked close to an area that a handicapped person would be using. Not in the handicap zone, but close enough to it to where when we came out, he said, when we got to my car, he said, Grandma, you're not supposed to park there. And I said, well, I thought I was far enough away from it, but I could see his point. And so yesterday, raining again, and I was gonna have to park far away. And so that was the concrete thing of recognizing, okay, that's not right to do that. And he noticed, and I want to set a good example for him. But deeper into that was I had to ask myself, why did I feel like it was okay to do that? And what is it in me that wants to go ahead and fudge a little bit as far as the morality on that? What is it that would make it okay to do that? Because it's raining?
Grandmother mind.
Grandmother, yeah. So it was very interesting yesterday to think about that.
Yeah, those, but I think it was edge cases, right?
Yes,
It's a-
yes.
It's an edge, is this at the edge, is this over the edge, you know, kind of, or, yeah, we're always negotiating away, right?
Right.
And oftentimes it's the kids who pull us up short.
Yes.
With my son, it was, Mom, why do people who love animals eat meat?
Yeah.
Well,
I think Jeanette's had her hand up.
Jeanette?
This may be completely obvious, but as I mentioned yesterday, I'm being buffeted by what's going on, and I'm having waves of anger and sorrow and fear. And in the first sit today, I was too afraid to really be fully present, and then I brought myself in the second sit and had a conversation with my fear. And then I had this thought, be a person who is kind. And in order to do that, you have to have your feet on the ground. And I realized that it's not just the choices that I make about ethics, it's the choices that I make about where I put my attention and how I can find ways to get my feet on the ground so that I can be a kind person, so that I can make choices.
That's right. Yeah. Jess?
Yesterday, what I guess hit me was the the midday reflection, that poem, and yeah, and I remember like a similar one from like a Tibetan Buddhist sort of sutra, and it's like one is like there's a right, like he's not non-dual, he differentiates friend from enemy, and he names that, and then, but then also, you know, he's, and I think it probably is true, it was true for me that if it wasn't for certain like difficulties, I wouldn't be on this path, right? I wouldn't be, you know, here. And so he's blessing his enemies in that way. And yeah, it just sort of like, you know, like, I think also he was very limited in what he could do. You know, it sounds like he was being tortured. And so that was what he could do for himself. And so I think, like Jeanette's saying, like, you know, kind of finding a kind place. So I guess that's the complexity. And so like what, you know, how do you, I don't know, like, you know, that balance between this like duality and then this like kind of non-dual compassion, how does how does one get there?
Well, we always say there are two kinds of people in the world, Jess. People who divide the world into two kinds of things, and anyway. Chris?
I get caught up as much as anyone in duality, especially with regard to ethics and morals. It's encouraged by the culture as well as our current quote unquote leaders. And what I keep forgetting, I know this, but I keep forgetting that people are not immoral as I tend to think of them. People are complex, and everyone comes out of an ethical and I remember that. I don't have any problem remembering that when I'm in front of a person, when I'm watching, listening, talking to them. I remember that this is a person with their own unique complexity. But when I'm not in front of the person, I go so easily to maybe not dualism, but pretty a pretty sharp divide. And so that's what I was reminded of all day yesterday. And I guess that's something that I just have to keep remembering.
Yeah, that's why, the term we use for mindfulness it's really the translation of sati, which means recalling. Recalling who you want to be, recalling what you want in the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to keep over and over again, keep recalling. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just been reflecting, as we've been talking about this, about something I've really took in yesterday, just because it was in the news, that these resignations of these lawyers from the Justice Department, the Southern District of New York, and one of whom was a pretty young guy, And what I am just so appreciative of is, in the current environment, their resignations are not gonna change anything. I mean, they're not gonna change the trajectory of the administration, but their articulation of the principles and the reasons, was such a gift. It was so inspiring, such a gift, and so I'm just reflecting on that as a sort of phenomenon of standing and articulating regardless of whether it's gonna make a difference.
Have some effect on the outcome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's just something has been in my consciousness.
It's profound, the people who at their own cost refuse to be complicit.
And it has an effect.
It does have an effect.
It may not have
The direct effect.
yes,
Yeah.
but it
Exactly.
affected you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does have an effect. So the ripples come out from every thought, word, and action. Yeah. Well, briefly,
We have this expression we use around here, appropriate response. And I was just thinking about a particular situation, and when you do the appropriate response, how it just feels right. Nothing's hanging on.
it doesn't leave a residue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And today we take up Shanti.
Sorry, we have Kathy.
Oh, Kathy?
Good morning. I just wanted to mention when everything was moving quickly and a few weeks ago, I took a notebook and what I wrote down was all of the ways that there's pushback. And if I could, I went ahead and contacted some people. And that really helped me to see that there are others in the world that are concerned about it.
So recognizing and appreciating those who are acting in an immoral way in immoral circumstances.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. It's heartening and inspiring.